nursery if your kids are running that way. So welcome. I'm honored to be here with each of you today. Just encourage you to sit back, make yourselves at home, have some coffee, whatever it is. But I ask just to prepare your hearts. Like, God, what do you want me to receive this morning? But first, I just want to, since we're doing two services, I just want to kind of highlight what happened in the first service. We did a child dedication today. And I think it was really important. We did a child dedication for Silas Savko, Mark and Carrie's young little boy. And I just love child dedications. It's just a time as a church where we can come together and recognize that God blessed us with this, not just us, but this world with this little child. And our role in that is to help them raise this child to know and love God, so that in the end, this child, when this child meets Jesus, that this child can hear, "Well done, my good and faithful servant." So, and that's all of our jobs, to help in any way we can. So today I want to talk about the why. Like, why do we gather? Why are we here today? Why do we give money to church? Why are you here today? Here's one that should make you pause. Why do you even exist at all? Why are you in this world? That one should pause each and every one of us until we get to the point where we know why we're here and we know our identity is in Christ. So this morning we're kind of want to just strip away all the unnecessary stuff in life. Anybody ever heard of Harmon Palmer? Anybody? Your life is better. Every one of our lives is better because of him. Harmon invented the very first machine that makes cinder blocks. Now you're like, oh, I know what a cinder block is. It's holding this building up. But the machine he made a solid cinder block, completely solid. And they weighed about 100 pounds. So while he invented this to revolutionize construction, like to completely change construction, these blocks that were 100 pounds, they'd wear a guy out trying to stack them and build something. And then with that weight, you get too many of them up, and things can topple. Like, it wasn't that great. But then he went back to the drawing board. And he started looking at this and how can he was thinking, how can I strip away some of this weight? And if any of you are familiar with cinder blocks today, you'll know an 8-inch cinder block has 2 holes in the center, in the sides. And the actually edges are kind of cupped out too. And that's all to shave weight off of that, to remove the parts that really weren't needed. And that hollow cinder block now weighs about 36 pounds and will hold tremendously more weight than the solid one will as it's stacked up. What if our lives are like that? Where we can just sit back and strip away all the stuff that's keeping us from living into our mission, whatever it would be. So why? Why do you exist? Why are you on this earth? Is it simply okay to get up 5, 6, 7 days a week, go to your office job or your farm job or teacher, whatever it is you do, and that's what life's about? I really want no part of it if that's what it is. I mean, I enjoy going to work, but I don't want that being my sole purpose. If your life were stripped down to its core, no titles, no schedules, no distractions, we remove the stuff that's keeping us from being who God designed us to be. If you remove all that stuff, would your life still have meaning? Think about that for a little bit. That question sits at the heart of why God created you. Why he created you. And he created you for a reason. One, he created you because he cares. He loves you. So the other side of this is not just why do you exist? Why does a church exist? Why does this church exist? Why are we here? Why did God decide that he wanted a church on Route 89 halfway between Corey and Union City? Because I look around and I don't know of any of you but one that lives right here. Why does it sit here? Why does this church sit here? What's the point of it? Why did God choose to place this church right here? Pastor Dave Kinney once said, most churches today are more of a museum of tradition than a mosaic of transformation. A museum is a portrait of yesterdays buried on display, while a mosaic is a portrait of brokenness beautifully displayed. A mosaic of transformation. I don't want to be a museum. I want us to be a mosaic of transformation, of people's lives being transformed. And I've been wrestling with this over the past few years, probably as a pastor, since I've started as a pastor many years ago. This has been it. Number one, we are about transformation. And I've been wrestling with this, and believe it or not, the leadership here of the church has been as well. Are we living into what God has called us to as a church, as leadership here? So, why do we exist? Why does this church exist? And on a very basic level, the answer to this is our church exists to disciple everyone. Everyone God brings through these doors, everyone that we come in contact with, it's our job, even if it's just a little part, to help them in their journey, whether they're a Christian or not, to meet or know Jesus. Our church exists to disciple everyone, helping people belong to Christ, grow in his word, and live spirit-filled lives on mission. Everyone. That term everyone sounds like it doesn't sound very pinpointed. It sounds like we're just taking off on this big project and biting off more than we can chew, and we're going to struggle. But if you look at it as its core, everyone matters to God. So the people he sends our way, we are going to do our best to be faithful just in any way we can to help them in their journey. In Luke 15 is probably my favorite chapter in the entire Bible. There's a few parables in there, and it's Jesus speaking in parables. These are his words, and if you're not familiar with a parable, that's okay. It's really, Jesus is using a story to get a point across. It's not necessarily something that has actually happened when he shares his story, but it's to get his point across. And he has 3 parables in this chapter, and every one of these parables has to do with something lost. And in fact, they all have to do with one thing lost. Not a lost group or a lost bunch of objects, just one thing. One of them is the first one where Jesus talks about a shepherd who has 100 sheep. And 99 of them are still there and one goes missing. Another one is the woman that loses a coin. And then the final one is the prodigal son you might be familiar with, is the man who his son has took his inheritance and was lost and squandered all that away. But the one, 99 sheep are still there. My mother would have thrown the biggest party in the world in high school if I'd have got a 99% on one of my tests. That's a pretty good number, right? 99%. Who wouldn't be excited about that? Like, that's not bad. Even we all go to doctors. A lot of them graduated at like 75%, and we're okay with that, right? 2 out of 3. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. We've all heard that before. But it wasn't good enough for Jesus. 99% was not good enough. The one. 100%. An example of that, where Jesus actually lived this parable out, is in John chapter 4, where Jesus purposefully walks through Samaria. And if you're not familiar, that's okay. Jews, Jesus was a Jew, and Samaritans did not get along. They did not like each other. Stay away from these people. But Jesus decided that he's not doing that. That one woman was important to him. This woman was not someone that was living a morally upright life. She was living a life of sin. The disciples that were walking with Jesus would have been more than happy to walk around the city and not care about this one. But Jesus cared. And as he sought this woman out, and if you want to go into, I'm not going to go into the details, but if you want to know, just go read that verse in John 4. But this woman, after she encountered Jesus, her life was never the same. That's what we want to do here. We want to be a church that sets up that meeting between Jesus and the person that doesn't know him. We want to be that church that helps that happen, because we know full well that lives are changed forever when someone truly meets Jesus. That's what we want. One person at a time. Jesus deeply cared for the lost one. There was no one that was out of his reach. There was no one he wasn't willing to go after. That's the church we want to be here. Yes, Jesus preached to thousands and thousands of people. There were times in Scripture where Jesus just wanted to get away. There were so many people. Couldn't go through this town, or had to take the boat because there were so many people. But he never passed the opportunity on the one. He taught his disciples to do the same. Why? Because each person matters. Each soul matters. Each life matters. You matter. Maybe you've never really had an encounter with Jesus. Maybe it's all new to you. Maybe you're just here because somebody drug you here today. That's okay. Start looking into it. See if Jesus, test me on this. See if Jesus really cares about you, because he does. Our mission is the one. One soul at a time. One person. Look at it this way. Who is that one person in your life that you don't want to be in eternity one day and they not be there? That one's on you. That's God asking you to really pour into that person. Why God chose us to be his hands and feet to reach people, I have no idea. Who's that one that you can't imagine heaven without? That person you already know and love. A person that you're willing to rearrange your life for, to find time to spend with them. Not a project, but a soul that Jesus cares about. Maybe some of you are here today because somebody cared enough about you. They didn't want to see heaven without you. Why? Because people matter. People mattered to Jesus, therefore they matter to us. So seek that out. Seek that person out in prayer. God, who is it that you're working on that you want me to pour into their life? And let me tell you this, we have seats here, so there's room for people, but this isn't about just inviting people to church. This is about spending time with this person, hoping and praying for the opportunity to present itself to share to them what you know about Jesus. And you might be thinking, well, I'm really new at this. I don't know enough to talk. You'd be surprised. The words will come. Now, this may be a repeat to a lot of you. We've been talking about this for a couple years now here as a church. Honestly, it's transformed this church. But you may be new. This may be new to you. And so I want you to really pay attention because this isn't going away. This is something that's at our core anymore. We started, like I said, about 2 years ago talking about this. And it's been a huge factor in our success here. We've had multiple baptisms. First service, we had our child dedication. And there's more of them, I'm sure, to come. In less than the past 2 years, we've seen a 180% increase in attendance on Sunday worship service. 180%. We've doubled our volunteer roster. And here's the big one. I know this number is not completely accurate, but 61. And I know many of you are thinking, what in the world is this title that he's preaching on? 12 to 61. 61. And I know I'm missing a few. But there are 61 children on our roster now that regularly attend here. 2 years ago, that number was 12. 12 to 61. We have reason to celebrate. Huge reason. And this is not patting ourselves on the back. This is simply prioritizing people because people matter. This all started when our oversight board 2 years ago decided to set aside personal preferences in order to create space for people that don't have a home to worship Jesus at. To create space for those who might not have encountered Jesus yet. So why not? Why not help that encounter to be here? And your oversight board is still continuing to work diligently at this. To see that this continues, that we are faithfully living into who God has called us to be as a church. And leadership right now is in the middle of prepping and planning for something pretty important. To further this church into mission. And I can't even give details yet because we still have a lot of work to do, let's put it that way. But this mission is important. This mission isn't about growing the church, although that's part of it. Because as you're reaching people, yes, they're going to be here because you're going to bring your ones with you. This mission is about helping people belong to Christ and grow in His Word and live a Spirit-led life on mission. So I'm going to read Luke 15, verses 8 through 10 now. And it's suppose Suppose a woman has 10 silver coins and loses one. Doesn't she light a lamp, sweep the house, and search it carefully until she finds it? Look at that one word, carefully. This is a diligent search for that one coin, not giving up. This is not like when your kids are looking, you tell them to go in the room and get you something, and they don't even hardly step in the doorway and say, Mom, it's not in there. Like, this is looking diligently for it, carefully searching until she finds it. And when she finds it, she calls her friends and neighbors together and says, Rejoice with me. I have found my lost coin. This isn't about money. It's about souls. It's about people. Why? Because people matter. Let's look at how this ends in verse 10. In the same way I tell you, there is rejoicing in the presence of angels of God over one sinner who repents. We want to be that church that makes heaven be one continuous party. It's not about money. It's about relentless pursuit of the one. Our church has grown because of this mission. This mission that each person matters. Like I said, our mission isn't about filling seats. It's about loving people. Because to God, every one of you matters. Every one of your friends matter. Everyone in your family matters, even if they don't know who Jesus is. Everyone. Maybe this is all new to you. Maybe you're just here and you're exploring and you haven't given your heart to Christ yet. Or maybe you just have and it's all new. And if you haven't yet, just spend some time talking to God. God, what's this all about? Because it will come to a point in your life, and it does with everyone, that sooner or later, you're going to be faced with the question of what happens after my time on this earth is over. And if you haven't wrestled with that yet, you're going to. I know where I'm going when my time here is over. I'm going to be in heaven in eternity with Jesus because I gave my life to him. Because he died on the cross for my sins and your sins. And recognize this, none of us are perfect. None of you here are beyond his reach. None of your friends or family members or people that you know are beyond his reach. So when somebody says to you, oh, I can't go to church, I've done too many things, Jesus won't not know part of me, like that's just a lie. Everyone matters. Because they matter to God, they matter to us. And it matters that you participate in our mission because it's God's mission. One of the people I really enjoy listening to, watching, is Josh Howerton. I don't know if any of you are familiar with him. He's a pastor that's on YouTube, all that stuff, pretty popular. And I was watching him the other day, and he shared this story. And so I'm going to just repeat it to you. Back in 1934, there were two 14-year-old boys. And they were walking down the street in the Carolinas, and they came across this big tent. And they could hear this speaker in there talking. The guy talking was Mordecai Ham. And he was preaching. It was one of them tent revivals, and many of you probably were pretty familiar with them. I remember when I was young, we'd have revival week at the church and all this stuff, and don't do that anymore, but things change. And they used to have these big tent revivals where these preachers would go and hundreds of people would show up, and this place was packed. not a empty seat in the house. And so these boys walk in and they see this and they look around and they were intrigued by what he was saying, but they couldn't find anywhere to sit. And so they were leaving and they were walking out. And this usher, today, no one knows his name. No one knows who this guy is, but this usher stopped the boys and said, "Hey, why don't you stick around? I'll find you a place to sit." And he does. He goes and has people squished together and all this stuff. And he finds these boys are jammed in these seats, but they're two 14-year-old boys sitting beside each other. That usher was like, these kids aren't walking away on my watch. And they're sitting there, and both boys end up giving their life to Christ that night. Both of them. Because that usher wasn't willing to let them leave. Big deal, right? Two people. Well, one, everyone matters. But the one boy's name, many of you are probably familiar with. The one boy's name was Billy Graham, who went on to preach to more, went on to preach to more people than anyone else in the history of this world. No one to this day has preached to more people than Billy Graham. Led more people to Christ than Billy Graham. Absolutely amazing. Could you imagine if that usher would have let him walk out the door? The other young man's name you're probably not familiar with, but his name was Grady Wilson. And that young man ended up organizing every one of Billy Graham's crusades. Because of that usher, thousands of people gave their life to Christ. Because of that usher, we now have things like Operation Christmas Child and Samaritan's Purse, that they'll fly doctors in after disasters and help these countries that have nothing in medical care, all because of this one usher. This no-named usher changed the world. Don't tell me you can't change your world, because you can. Every role you serve in, every note we play here, every word that's spoken, every encounter with someone else, every opportunity matters. One usher changed the world by fulfilling the mission God called him to. Simple mission, but he did it. Simple, but he was willing. Who's your one? Who's that person that God has burdened you with, that you know if their last breath is tomorrow, they're not going to be in heaven with you? And I'm not talking about jamming the gospel down their throat. I'm just talking about showing them the love that Christ showed you, and be there when they're ready to talk about it. Why? Because they matter. Because you matter. Our mission isn't about filling seats. Yes, that's an added bonus to this, but it's about loving people. Because to God, they matter. Everyone. And because of that, they matter to us. Your mission is your one. Matt, why don't you come up? What would it look like if we were 100% of us here were committed to that mission? One usher changed the world. Can you imagine if there's 130 of us working hard to change this world? 61. The work we've done in the past 2 years has made a difference. 61 children. Next year, let's put that number in triple digits. 100, 110. Why? Because their souls matter. Because Because people matter. I know we have a couple board members here. Can you come up and help serve communion? We're going to do communion now. Because people matter. Souls matter. Communion, I'm going to challenge you with this. We're going to do communion now, and if it's something you're not comfortable with, that's okay. Simply let it pass by. Nobody's going to judge you. Nobody's going to care. But communion is a time that you're saying to God, yes, Jesus, I know you've died for my sins, and I'm going to commit all I have to serve you. Come on. I want to challenge you to spend time in prayer. If you have a one, spend time praying for that person. If not, spend time asking God who that person is. Maybe it's you. Maybe you know right now that you're not living into what God has called you to live into. It's a good time to commit to that. To simply ask God to forgive your sins and commit your life to Him. Don't expect everything you struggle with to go away instantly. God transforms our hearts over time, not instantly. And every one of us still struggles with things. Jesus was in the upper room, the very first communion, and he took the bread and he broke it, and there's 12 disciples sitting with him, including the one that was going to betray him. It was an intense moment, I'm sure, for Jesus. The disciples didn't know what was coming, but he did. And he took that bread and he ripped it. And he had the disciples rip a chunk off, and I'm sure he was looking at it. And he says to them, "This is my body broken for you." And I'm sure they were quite confused because he hadn't gone to the cross yet, but he was about to. And so as we do it, we know the sacrifice he made for us. His body broken on that cross. And so as we do this, we're worshiping him, we're honoring him for taking that punishment that we deserve. And he broke that bread, and he said, "Do this in remembrance of me." But he didn't stop there. He took the cup. And he took the cup and he drank from it and he passed it. And he said, "This represents my blood. This is my blood spilled out, that will be spilled out for you." He said, "Do this in remembrance of me." Let's go change the world one soul at a time.